Hi everyone, in today's video I'll be talking about the latest character that was just released in the game, Pandora. As usual, I'll be talking through kind of her skills, her constellation, her clothes. I'll also be showing you an example of a team formation that you can potentially use with her. And at the end, I will kind of close off this video with some of my thoughts on Pandora, on how good she is and whether you should be pulling her with your petals in this event. So now let's go straight into her skills. Her first skill is really interesting and kind of surprised me a lot by how much damage it deals. But basically, in a nutshell, it targets the enemy. What actually no, it targets a knight with the lowest HP. And if it's an ally, what's gonna happen is that it's gonna heal them. If it's an enemy, it's gonna deal damage. And she's able to do this 5 times. Now, the one really interesting to me is so a few things. One, this is a single target healing. However, it's actually a nice way of single target healing because it targets the ally with the lowest HP. So it kind of already guarantee you kind of help out your knight, the one who's most in need. So that's really good already. But what's really interesting for me is actually the other side, which is targeting an enemy. Because if you think about that, when it targets an enemy with the lowest HP, and you'll be doing more damage to them, so theoretically, after you deal damage the first time, they will be still the one with the lowest HP because you literally just dealt them and they were already the one with the lowest. So actually, that means is that your 5 attack are always going to land on the same enemy target. If you are targeting an enemy, and think about how much damage this deals. This deals 180% of attack. 180% of attacks. Times that by 5, that's 900%. Let's put this into perspective now. Comparing this to Sagittarius, who have one of the highest single target ultimate. This is only 550% of attack. So Pandora is dealing 900% of attack, while Sagittarius is only dealing 550%. That's just how crazy Pandora's damage output is. Now, granted, Sagittarius also have this additional effect of ignoring the defense of by 30%, right? Very strong. But remember, Pandora also have this additional effect, which is that it is gonna increase the damage output by 40% of the lost HP. Do you know what that means? Once again, think about this 5 times. This is almost like how you normally calculate like bank interest, etc. It adds on. It will keep on getting rolling. This is rolling interest. So imagine someone who at the start, the very first time, they have only lost 20% of the HP. Let's say when you first target them, what's 40% of that 20? It's gonna be 8%. So by default, if I even discount the normal attack or damage this ultimate deal, purely from the lost HP point of view, your second time when you damage them, it's gonna be 20. They have already lost 28% of HP. So by default, the 40% of that 28, this is gonna be an extra 11%. And then now think about they have now already suffered 28. You just deal them additional 11, so now they have lost 39%. So your third attack is going to deal them 15%. And if you actually continue this on, by the end of your fifth attack, you are going to wipe them out. Like, this is how crazy it is. If someone is starting off this battle, well, when you first target someone and they have 80% of their HP left, by the end of your ultimate, you're gonna kill them off. Straight like that. And this is based on their lost HP. This is not even based on you know how much of defense they have or anything like that. It doesn't scale that way. It's purely based on how much HP they have left. So you are literally gonna be. This is almost like a one-hit KO. So this is just how crazy it is. And because it's also, like I said, scaled off the enemy's lost HP, it's irrelevant of their defense. So even in story maps, etc., this is going to pack a punch because no, regardless how strong the enemy's defense are, as long as they took about 20% of HP up front, then they're going to get wiped out. So absolutely ridiculous. Now, one thing to counter this is obviously if you actually want to if they're actually getting healed up in the middle, then fine, yes, this won't be enough. But don't worry too much about that because uh, second level of her clothes actually prevents them from being healed when they've been targeted. So once again, this is just ridiculous. This is just single target one hit KO here. Now let's talk about the second skill. Second skill is this one is quite straightforward. It's just basically deal damage to three enemies and prevent them from being healed at the same time as well. Well, not prevent them from being healed. They reduce the healing effect. So this is quite nice. Once again, it goes a bit of synergy with one of her other skill that we'll be talking about. But the other thing to note here is that she potentially would be useful in boss battle against Mermaid Thetis because Mermaid Thetis will be healing herself up, and this one reduce the effect of that healing. So this is also quite nice in that situation. Then the third skill, Wish of the Opposite. This is also another once again I think an OP skill in my opinion. Basically it grants your a status effect called opposite on the ally which is most damaged. It lasts for 3 seconds, and during that time, all the damage they received become healing instead. So think of this as you give someone 3 minute, 3 seconds of invincibility because within those 3 seconds they're not taking any damage, right, and they're getting healed up. So this is a 3 second invincibility to your ally with the lowest HP. Let's put this into perspective. Think about Agate. When Agate is killed off, you get 5 second immunity, and that's kind of what makes Agate absolutely crazy. Uh, this is 3 seconds, but this can be used multiple times in the whole battle. Agate's skill can only be used on himself, and only can be used once during that battle. This essentially is a looping skill, so it can be used multiple times, right? And it can be any ally. It's the ally that took the most damage as well. So it's very most likely going to be the ally who's about to be killed off. So this is once again another absolutely crazy skill that you're able to do this, just kind of constantly granting your allies invincibility throughout the whole battle. So once again, another OP skill. Um, then the last one, Halo, is kind of her, I guess, signature skill in some sense, which is that whenever she is present throughout this entire battle, all of the other enemies are gonna continue to take damage, equal to 1.25% of their HP. This is capped to her own attack though, so don't think of you can go for a cheeky way of bringing a 5-star Pandora in and still do that kind of crazy damage to everyone per second. It doesn't work like that. You still need her to be a sufficiently high level because it's going to be capped at her attack. But then the other thing to know is that this is applied to all of the knights on the field except for herself. So that basically means it applies to your 4 other knights as well. So in some sense, this is a double-edged sword. You are dealing damage to your opponents, but you are also dealing damage to your own knights. At face value, you'll be coming out slightly stronger because you are dealing damage to 4 of your knights, whereas you are dealing the same damage to 5 of their knights. So it does work. And also, there's a very good synergy with her first skill, the ultimate, because the ultimate needs to deal damage. Well, it doesn't need to, but it gives us additional damage based on 40% of the lost HP. And this one basically gives you the ability to continuously deal damage to people throughout this whole battle. So this basically makes your ultimate almost give them a bottom line of how much your ultimate is definitely going to deal because they definitely wouldn't be kind of most likely they won't be at full health when you release that ultimate. They would have already taken some form of damage through her passive, etc. So that's very nice once again. So a bit of a synergy there, and also a bit of synergy here because you are preventing your the enemies from healing. Well, not preventing, sorry. You're reducing their healing effect. So now that you're thinking about you are dealing this continuous passive damage to them, and also with your other skill, you are reducing how much they can be healed by. So once again, very nice synergy there within her own toolkit. Now let's quickly move on to her clothes. I already talked about the first 2 levels, but basically that's her ultimate. When you target your own knight, you are gonna grant them bless effect. So that's basically the one which immunes control, and then the second level prevents them from being healed for 4 seconds. So that's very useful. Then the last 2 level basically give her Cosmo generation whenever Doomstar deal damage. Doomstar is her last passive ability I was just talking about. This one deals damage every single second. So actually now you can just think of her last skill in her close as she will be generating 80 cosmo per second. So that's once again very nice. It's very likely to be letting you to kind of recharge your ultimate really quickly. I already talked about how ridiculous her ultimate is when you are dealing damage. So, absolutely amazing. Close to have. In terms of constellation, they all affect the wish of opposite, so that's the one that grants people kind of immunity and invincibility. The first one basically says now you can affect Pandora as well, which is very nice because one thing is that Pandora gets really strong kind of as the battle goes on, right? Because her passive is continuous dealing damage, and she is able to continuous grant your own allies in invincibility through this. So one key way to break Pandora's formation would be to kill her off quite quickly, but now that your wish of opposite affect yourself as well, you are basically giving yourself the potential to become invisible for 3 seconds. Well, so that's once again very nice. And then the second effect is that so the second level of constellation is that when she casts other skills, this wish of the opposite will be cooldown and be ready to be used again. So once again, this is also very nice because granting invincibility just such an OP skill for you to kind of reset the cooldown completely. It's just good. And do remember that what do you call it? Her ultimate, because she will be charging up Cosmo constantly with her max close, her ultimate can actually potentially be released fairly frequently. So this is actually, going to be quite frequent as well. So basically that means it's much more likely you'll be able to release kind of this invincibility effect to yourself or to your allies. So once again, a very strong constellation. Now let's talk about some formation ideas for Pandora. There's one knight in particular that I definitely recommend you pairing up with Pandora, and that is Gemini Cannon. Now, Gemini Cannon is very interesting because if you remember, Pandora have this passive skill which makes all of the other knights on the field, except for herself, lose HP every single second. But if you actually look at Gemini Cannon's armor, his clothes, at the first two level, basically he have this ability that for every single 1% of HP he lost, he is actually going to gain a 1% attacking speed. So before this was a double-edged sword because it hurts 4 of your knights, but hurts 5 of the opponent's knights. However, with Gemini Cannon on the field, even though yes, you are still losing HP, but you're getting something back in return. So actually now it's almost becoming your passive, Pandora's passive is only hurting 3 knights on your side, but hurting all 5 on the opponent's side. And that just makes it really good synergy between Pandora and Gemini Cannon. And even if Gemini Cannon dies in the process, and max level close, what happens is that when he dies, he's gonna summon meteors, which is gonna attack all of the enemy, equal to 50% of their lost HP. Once again, that's a great synergy with Pandora because remember, Pandora have this passive which makes all of the enemy lose HP per second. So one thing normally you are a bit afraid of when you have Gemini Cannon is that if he dies too quickly, then it's not really worth it because even if he dies, the enemy haven't suffered too much HP and therefore the meteor that came out of him dying is not going to do enough damage. However, now with passive, you almost guarantee a bottom line for how much HP the opponent is going to lose. And therefore, even if your Gemini Cannon goes kamikaze and just dies, it's still worth it because now, let's say they already suffered 10% HP, let's say, from Pandora's um, passive, then you are going to deal an additional 5% when your Gemini Cannon does. And like I said, once the opponent's kind of around the 80% HP mark, that makes Pandora really dangerous already because Pandora's ultimate can actually kill them off when someone's within kind of the 80% HP range. So that's actually very, very deadly combo. And for this reason, I definitely recommend you have Gemini Cannon whenever you want to play Pandora. And you normally want to put Gemini Cannon up front because Gemini Cannon also have other effects where, for example, when an enemy attack into him, then they will receive one of those demon brainwashing fist, whatever it's called. The Phantom Emperor Demon Attack, that one. Basically, that will confuse the opponent and make you control them for a few seconds. So that's actually really useful. So I definitely recommend putting Gemini Cannon up front, especially now that you are not too afraid of him dying. The other knights I would recommend is, so first of all, if you already have what do you call it? A light character and a dark character in your team, then you definitely want to go for a rainbow formation of five different elements. So now you kind of need to think about other knights that you want to have. One knight, ideally you want to pick one from every single elements, right? So for water, I generally recommend you picking Moses. So Moses is able to protect your knights for the first few seconds of the game if you have him at max constellation, and that also helps a lot with your synergy with Gemini Cannon. Once again, you don't want Gemini Cannon to die too quickly, so with your Moses, you're able to protect your whole team for the first 8 seconds. So that kind of normally helps your Gemini Cannon to live through at least the first 8 seconds. Within those 8 seconds, your Pandora's passive will already be dealing 8% of damage to all of the enemies, etc. So once again, they all work together with each other. So Moses is probably the best knight in this formation for the water slot. For the fire slot, there are a couple of options. You can, for example, go for a more healing kind of driven team. So basically, the idea is to protect your Gemini cannon to not die too quickly and also make the battle go on a bit longer. So your Pandora is able to inflict more damage with her passive. And also, as I mentioned earlier, Pandora is actually quite fragile. So you definitely do want to put some knights who are able to protect her, etc. So I would probably recommend if you have to pick a fire position, then I would pick Arismu, who's like the best support ever. For wind positioning, I generally recommend you put uh Chameleon June. I think Chameleon June is a very nice character that once again goes have a bit of synergy with Pandora. The idea behind Chameleon Junior is that Chameleon Junior heals once again the front row knight. So once again, she can help Gemini Cannon to live a bit longer, to make the most out of his meteor when he dies. And also, what Chameleon Junior is able to do is that she can use her whip to bind someone and kind of taking that person out of action. And once again, if you take someone out of action, that basically makes the battle goes on longer, and that works to Pandora's advantage because then it makes your Pandora able to deal more damage through her passive, etc. On top of that, Chameleon also have a bit of a healing effect, which targets the enemy. Target your ally, which have lower HP. So once again, that's also in line with kind of what Pandora is doing because Pandora also tries to use her effect of the opposite status to try to protect knights with lower HP. So now you kind of have two knights which are protecting your knights from kind of dying, which once again is very good synergy there. So this is probably the formation I recommend for Pandora. Of course, if you want to change any of the other element knights to an earth element, I'll probably recommend either Hound Asterion or Casa. Both of them achieve similar kind of thing. Casa basically once again prevent you from an immunity, which I think is actually quite good. Because let's say I already have Pandora with her wish of opposite to able to kind of effectively grant a short period of immunity or invincibility to one of your knight. Now I also have Casa, which is able to do the same thing when someone is about to die. So these two together can actually help you a long way about protecting your knights because whenever someone's about to die, either the Wish of Opposite from Pandora will activate or Casa's looping skill will activate his telepathy. And both cases, they will be able to protect your knight. And because you have two looping skills which are able to do this, they can actually alternate between each other as well. Because so when one skill is on cooldown, you don't have the other character's skill to be relied on, etc. So I actually think this is also a very interesting choice. The only problem with this is that you may find yourself having a bit because there isn't like a standard healer in this team. Chameleon June can heal a bit, but not massively. So you may actually see Pandora's ultimate healing your own knights more than dealing damage, which is also fine. But you just probably won't see that explosive side of Pandora in this kind of formation. But either way, they have quite a lot of good choices for Pandora. I think, like I said, the main thing is kind of you definitely want Gemini Cannon in your team. As for the other remaining slots, you can kind of pick between the other four elements and just choose three out of them that you have and think actually works in this lineup. So now let's conclude this video. Is Pandora's a knight that's worth summoning for? I think Pandora is certainly very strong. A lot of her skills are actually quite OP, overpowered. And she can deal a lot of damage, which is very surprising for a support knight. So I would almost want you to consider Pandora rather than a support knight, but think of her more as kind of a skill knight who's able to deal lots of damage. It's true that she is still able to do a bit of healing with her skills as well, but her explosive damage inside is actually a lot more scary. And I actually think because of that, you will probably see her dealing one of the highest damage in your team. Um, and on that note, what is Pandora good for? So Pandora, like I said, she deals ridiculous amount of high damage. I have tried her in boss battle, and she is actually pretty good, pretty damn good in terms of her damage output. Probably up there, alongside with kind of Poseidon as one of the higher damage dealing knights. You probably, because in a boss battle you are normally restricted to just five knights, so maybe you will find tough to find a spot for her if you already have a lot of the other high damaging assassins like Capcom Shura or Scorpion Mirror, or maybe you also want to play your bit more supporting knights like Virgo Shun and Leo and Sheena, etc. But if you are ever struggling to fill your team of five for boss battle, then Pandora's damage output can certainly help you out there. And on top of that, because she is a Dark Knight, so if you, let's say in your own guild boss battle, you want to fill in a rainbow formation there, then Pandora is also a good choice because out of all of the light and dark characters, she certainly deal one of the higher damage right now in the game. So that's kind of how Pandora can be used in boss battle. The other area I think Pandora is really useful is going to be in story maps, and that's mainly because of her passive, which basically deals 1.25% max HP damage per second to all of the enemies. As you probably know, as the story map goes on later on in the game, the enemies have a lot higher stats and it's harder to deal them damage. So whenever you have a damage which is scaled based on the enemy's own stats, it's normally quite good. So for that reason, you can see Pandora deal a lot of damage. The one thing to caveat here is that Pandora is extremely, extremely fragile. So she is very likely going to die in the process. So in story map, I would strongly recommend you to pair up a few more defensive knights to make sure that you can actually get your Pandora to last long enough in the battle to deal all that damage. And for the same reason, I don't actually think Pandora would be that useful in PvP because she's just going to be a bit too fragile, to be honest. Especially right now, the meta is still very much dominated by Sagittarius Seiya plus Virgo Shun. Pandora wouldn't see any sunlight right now in that meta because she will just be almost one-shotted by Sagittarius Seiya. So right now in the PvP, she definitely wouldn't have a place. Later on, when the meta do change and your Sagittarius Seiya is not present everywhere, then maybe Pandora will have a bit more of a spotlight. But even then, I'm gonna be honest with you, she wouldn't be able to make it into your first team PvP. And if the meta do change, your Sagittarius Seiya plus Virgo Shun is gonna be downgraded from your first team to your second team, and then your Pandora is not going to be able to compete with the second team either because the second team is going to be filled in with Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun. So Pandora is gonna find it really tough in the PvP scenario. So I don't recommend you getting her for PvP. So that's kind of my review on the character, but in terms of whether you should actually be pulling her for now, then obviously you have to think of the opportunity cost as well, which is right now in the banner, you are able to change Pandora to Poseidon, who is an all rounded, absolutely powerful character who is suitable for boss, suitable for story map, suitable for PvP, suitable for everything pretty much. So, is there any reason of why you wouldn't summon Poseidon instead of Pandora? And that's kind of going to be the main question I'll be asking you. And also in the future, if the banner release follows exactly in the same order as the Chinese service, the next night that's about to coming up would be Sagittarius God Close, which is another OP character who is going to change the meta completely. So I definitely think Pandora kind of being squeezed in the middle of Poseidon and possibly Sagittarius Seiya. For that reason, I don't think it would be a good idea to summon Pandora at all. I think it's much more useful that if you have already started building your Poseidon, then finish him off. If you already finished Poseidon or you are not planning to use him, then just save up your petals for Sagittarius Seiya. So not Sagittarius Seiya, Seiya God Close. I think both of them would be a much better choice than Pandora. So I definitely do not recommend you summoning on this one.